Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Jarrett Brooks was a boy who enjoyed the rancher's lifestyle. Even though he himself didn't live on a ranch, he had found some odd jobs at some nearby properties where he could do some handyman and maintenance type of work. Jarrett was almost always seen wearing his cowboy hat and cowboy boots. In 2023, Jarrett was 16 years old. He was being homeschooled, but he still had many local friends in his town of Joseph City, Arizona. He also volunteered as an explorer at the local fire department, and he was said to be friendly with everyone he met. Jarrett was also described as talkative and not someone who was ever really shy. Jarrett's family life at home was a bit strict, which was likely important because he was one of 7 children in the household. There had to be some rules to keep some order. On the night of July 3rd, 2023, Jarrett was grounded for taking out one of his father's hunting vehicles. He had previously been forbidden from taking the vehicle out, and his parents learned that he had snuck out with it. Not only that, but he had damaged it in the process. Around 10 o'clock p.m., his parents took his phone, which was something that they did with all the children every evening. The next morning, the family woke up early as they had a big day full of 4th of July events. When Jarrett woke up, he asked his parents if he could have his phone back and if he would be able to go to these events. But they told him no, he was grounded and had to stay home. Jarrett went sulking back to his room. Around 7 o'clock a.m., his mother got out of the shower and noticed that Jarrett wasn't in his room when she checked on him. This was about 30 minutes after their discussion earlier about whether Jarrett could attend the events or not. So both of his parents began searching for him, eventually getting into separate vehicles and driving around the neighborhood to look for their son. But Jarrett was nowhere to be found. Jarrett Brooks had disappeared. Where is Jarrett Thomas Brooks?
The Brooks family is a big one. 7 kids, and their middle child is 16-year-old Jarrett Brooks.
Oh, he is so outgoing, caring, loving, the life of the party, the life of the family.
But for the past 26 days, Jarrett has been missing. His parents, Laura and Brian, have not heard from him since the 4th of July.
Unimaginable.
Every minute of every day, you try to find those minutes where you're not thinking about it because they're far and few between.
The Navajo County Sheriff's Office says Jarrett was last seen on Boyce Road in Joseph City around 6:30 in the morning on July 4th, just a few miles from his home. Laura says that morning, Jarrett asked if he was grounded after breaking a vehicle he took off-roading when he wasn't supposed to. She told him he was grounded, but didn't think much of it.
This is so uncharacteristic of him that we do question whether or not he's safe.
2 weeks after Jarrett went missing, his family hired James Harder, a private investigator.
We currently have boots on the ground and the White Mountains, and we are running leads at this time. And anytime we get a lead, we don't leave any stone unturned. We work the lead.
An anonymous donor now offering $50,000 for tips leading to Jarrett being found safe. His parents hoping Jarrett is listening tonight.
You need to be home where you want, where you're loved. I mean,
You're not in any trouble, bud. Just come home. We love you.
Hello, and welcome back to the Where Are They podcast and another unsolved missing persons case. Jarrett's case is another sad one. Clearly, he was a teenager who was very upset at the time he went missing. It was the heart of summer. It was the 4th of July. It was supposed to be a time of fun. But Jarrett found himself grounded, which had to be tough for him to deal with. There are some online communities that are full of controversy about this case and lots of finger pointing. It's a bit of a mess, actually. And because of this, I want to tell Jarrett's story covering the facts of what we know and trying to keep the attention on Jarrett and not all of the online drama that surrounds this case. A young man is missing, and that is all that matters. Finding Jarrett. Jarrett Brooks was the fourth child born to Brian and Laura Brooks. Eventually, there would be a total of 7 children born to the Brooks, making Jarrett their middle child. Jarrett was homeschooled, and he grew up in a seemingly strict family household. It's hard to say how strict, however, and this has been one of the points of contention online as this case has been discussed. Jarrett seemed to be a happy, well-adjusted teen, however. He has many friends, something that can be difficult sometimes when you're homeschooled, and he did work some odd jobs for some local ranchers. In most of the photos of Jarrett, you see a young man with a mullet, often in a cowboy hat, jeans, and boots. It seemed he embraced the rancher's lifestyle, and he really seemed happy doing what he was doing. The disappearance. Jarrett knew he wasn't supposed to take his father's hunting vehicle out without permission. His parents knew that if something happened to it, Jarrett couldn't afford to fix it, and because of this, they told him no, he could not use the vehicle. But Jarrett took it out anyway. I don't know that a teenager disobeying their parents is that unusual either. But just as Brian had feared, Jarrett had damaged the vehicle. On July 3rd, 2023, his parents found out what happened. Subsequently, Jarrett was grounded. That evening, Laura took Jarrett's cell phone, and they would go to bed that night around 10 p.m. The next day was the 4th of July, and it was going to be a busy day for the whole family. At 6:30 a.m. on the morning of the 4th, the family was waking up for the day. Jarrett approached his mother and asked if he would be able to attend the festivities that day for the 4th. She told him no, he was grounded, and that meant he had to stay home. Jarrett turned around and went back to his bedroom. Laura hopped in the shower, and when she was done, she decided to go check on Jarrett, but he wasn't in his room. A quick look around the house turned up no signs of Jarrett either. She called out to her husband Brian, and he began helping look for Jarrett. Laura also started calling some of his friends, but no one had seen or heard from Jarrett. Soon, Brian and Laura decided that Jarrett must have left the house and he had to be on foot. They got in separate vehicles and began driving around the neighborhood looking for him. They found no signs of Jarrett, however. When they got back to the house, not knowing what else to do, they called the local police in Joseph City, Arizona, to report their son as missing. Jarrett Brooks had disappeared. The search and investigation. Right away, the family became very active on social media, trying to spread the word that Jarrett was missing. Authorities also came in and began their investigation. They noticed that there was a camera in the room where Jarrett's father kept his gun safe. They asked if they could review the footage for the time frame when Jarrett was believed to have disappeared, and they saw something that added more urgency to the search for Jarrett. Jarrett is seen on camera entering this room and removing a gun from the safe. This was just after his conversation with his mother that morning, just after 6:30 a.m., when it was believed that he had gone back to his bedroom. Now, Jarrett was missing, and so was one of his father's guns. Unfortunately, Jarrett didn't have his cell phone, so tracking him that way was not possible. Authorities began to talk to neighbors to see if maybe anyone had seen anything, and they turned up one promising lead. One neighbor had said that he had spotted Jarrett that morning walking across his pasture. The neighbor explained that he was out working on his property with a friend when they spotted Jarrett walking, and it looked like he was possibly holding a gun. Jarrett had gone under a fence by the frontage road and was walking back and forth. So this man and his friend decided to go and see what was going on. The neighbor got into his side-by-side vehicle and his friend got into his truck, and they decided to take the roads surrounding the property. The idea was that they would each drive in a circle from opposite directions in order to come around and catch up to the boy to find out what he was doing there. By each driving in this circle, they knew that they would meet up in the middle and that one of them would encounter Jarrett. When the two met up, however, Jarrett was gone. The neighbor is 100% convinced that he had to have gotten a ride out of there, that there was nowhere else for him to go. Authorities searched that area, and sure enough, they found Jarrett's wallet with seemingly nothing missing out of it. Now, the neighbor knows his property best, and the neighbor insists that the only way for Jarrett to get out of that area as fast as he did was to hop in someone's vehicle. Law enforcement also decided to bring in drones to cover as much ground as possible, and they also brought in specially trained search dogs. For the next few weeks and then months, detectives followed up on every lead and every tip they got. Now, a lot of times we don't see such swift and intense searches, especially for missing teens, but it seems that Joseph City, Arizona law enforcement was determined to find Jarrett, but all leads and all tips led nowhere. There would be some alleged sightings in Winslow, Arizona, and authorities also came out and announced that they thought that Jarrett might have traveled to San Antonio, Austin, or Temple, Texas. It was not disclosed why those particular areas or if Jarrett had any connections to those cities. Law enforcement came back to the Brooks' home a few months after Jarrett disappeared and served 4 search warrants. While it seems they were mostly for electronics in the households and computers and phones and such, the presence of law enforcement at the Brooks home got the community talking, and a lot of focus suddenly turned towards the parents. Judgments on the parents was harsh, and while I do understand some of it, it does seem that the parents have been out there searching for their son, doing media appearances, using social media, and just doing everything they can to find their son. But again, without any answers, every possibility has to be kept on the table. His parents also hired out some private investigators to continue searching for their son. Harter Investigations, LLC was brought in, and they held search parties to go out on foot in the area. The interesting thing that I found about these volunteer searches was that everyone who came to volunteer needed to provide a valid ID, and they needed to complete a background check. I don't know that I've ever heard of a background check for volunteers before in missing person cases. Seems like a drastic difference from the Wesley Dale Morgan case that we just covered. This little boy that went missing, and they brought out buses of inmates to help search. I'm not sure what the reasoning was for background checks or what the background checks even entailed, but it does seem interesting. Joseph City, Arizona. Joseph City, Arizona is a small town located northeast of Phoenix. It is right off of Interstate 40, which through this area is also known as part of the old Route 66. The population is around 1,300 residents, although the interstate does bring in some traffic and tourism to the area. There isn't much around, however, according to Google Maps. Locals have said that there are several abandoned mines in the area that would pose a danger to anyone walking through. It seems pretty empty and desolate once you're outside of the main town area. The Little Colorado River runs east and west, just south of Joseph City. It's not a huge river, but it's substantial enough for someone to fall in or maybe have an accident. It's a muddy river, and in many areas it's surrounded by flat, empty, desolate land. There are also several reservations that surround Joseph City, including Fort Apache, the Hopi, Zuni, San Carlos, and the Rama Navajo. It looks like there are a few national forests nearby, the Tonto National Forest, Apache National Forest, and the Petrified Forest National Park. All of these are within a couple hours of Joseph City. It does seem that there are a few small bodies of water, but it mainly looks like desert terrain. And I can't even imagine how hot that desert gets in July when Jarrett went missing. Now, many believe that Jarrett had to get a ride out of the area, which is why he can't be found. In fact, the neighbor who said that Jarrett disappeared suddenly while walking across his property is insistent that he had to get a ride out of there, that there was nowhere else for him to go or to hide. If he did get a ride out of the area, the easy access to Interstate 40 could have quickly taken him out of Joseph City and even out of Arizona. Interstate 40 extends all the way to California in the west and South Carolina in the east. It runs the entire length of the country. It also passes through several big cities, including Albuquerque, Oklahoma City, and Nashville. If Jarrett did leave the area in a vehicle, he could be anywhere. But if he did get a ride, who was it with? His parents insist that he didn't have time to make plans. He had the discussion with his mom that morning around 6:30 a.m., in which she told him that he was grounded from the 4th of July festivities. Within 30 minutes, Jarrett had left. He didn't have his cell phone, and they don't believe he had access to any phone to make a call during that time. There was also a stash of cash in the house that Jarrett knew about, and he didn't take it. He didn't take any of it. And he didn't have much of his own money. It does seem as if Joseph City was thoroughly searched by investigators, by volunteers and family, and still nothing was found. But is it possible that he is still out there? Sure. It's a vast desert, and with the mention of the abandoned mines, it's a possibility that he has remained unfound out there all this time. Theories and possibilities. I don't want to delve into the speculation and rumors that have swirled around this case, but I do think we should talk about some possibilities to help us understand the case and to help us understand how people can best help. First, remember, without any answers, it's imperative to keep an open mind and consider all possible scenarios. Theory number 1. An unhappy and distraught Jarrett ran away. He had just been grounded, and although it doesn't seem like he put up much of a fight with his parents, it's likely that he was upset. He was also seen taking a gun, which could mean multiple things. If he was planning on running away, perhaps he needed or wanted it for protection, or maybe he had hoped to sell it or trade it. Jarrett would have needed money and supplies to survive. What I do find interesting, however, is that he didn't have much of his own money, according to his parents, and while he knew where there was a stash of cash in the home, he didn't take any of it. He didn't have time to make any plans, so whatever he chose to do was spontaneous. While the circumstances fit the description of a teen who might run away, some facts do make us wonder if that's actually the case. Theory number 2. Human trafficking. Did Jarrett leave with the intention of just taking a walk and cooling off? Or did it start as an attempt to run away when Jarrett came across someone who picked him up? This would make sense according to the neighbor who insists that he had to get in someone's car. But with the spontaneity of Jarrett being there, that would mean someone had to be in the area driving by just as Jarrett was walking, unless he did have an opportunity to make a phone call and connect with someone, and no one was aware. If he was picked up for this purpose, he could literally be anywhere by now. And I do think while this is a possibility, it would also mean that a perpetrator had to be driving through at just the exact time that Jarrett was walking by, in this rural and desolate area in the very early morning hours of the 4th of July. It does seem like a long shot, I suppose, but maybe possible. Theory number 3. Self-harm. He was probably upset over being grounded, and we don't know the full extent of Jarrett's mental state. While everything seemed okay from the outside, is anyone ever really sure what's going on behind closed doors or in someone's mind? This could explain why he took the gun, but no money and no supplies. If his intention was to harm himself, he could have went somewhere that he knew no one would find him. But where is that? And were there any other signs that he was even thinking about something like this? From what we know, this theory seems out of left field for Jarrett. But again, we don't have all the details of Jarrett's mental state at this time. I think everything needs to be considered. I do want to point out, other than him taking the gun, there is no other evidence to point towards this theory that we know of. Theory number 4. Foul play. Did he leave the house with the intention of returning, but he ran into something or someone nefarious along the way? This could explain why he hasn't been found. But again, this would be the case of a perpetrator being at the right place at the right time and Jarrett being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But this theory might also explain why Jarrett has yet to be found. Theory number 5. An accident. Perhaps he left with the intention of running away, or even maybe with the intention of coming back at some point, but had some type of accident. The mention of the abandoned mines in the area make me believe this could be a possibility. I'm sure many have been searched, but have they all been located and searched? Are they even safe to search? What do you think happened to 16-year-old Jarrett Brooks? Jarrett is described as a Caucasian male with brown hair styled in a mullet at the time he disappeared. He was last seen wearing blue jeans, a black t-shirt, a ball cap, and cowboy boots. Jarrett was 16 years old then and would today be 17. Anyone with any information on the whereabouts of Jarrett Brooks is asked to contact the Navajo County Sheriff's Office at 928-524-4050. Thank you for listening to Jarrett's story today. Let's keep sharing his story, sharing his name, and bring this boy home. It's been over a year since he disappeared. Someone out there might just know something. As always, you can reach me over on the socials if you have any feedback or case suggestions. You can also email me anytime at canwefindthem@gmail.com. If you are interested in ad-free episodes and bonus episodes, you can join us over on Patreon. That link will be in the show notes, along with the link to our social medias and my email. If you've made it this far and would like to help these stories reach more people, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast platform. It helps tremendously, and as we know, it just takes that one person to solve a case. We just need that one person to hear the right story at the right time. Thank you again so much for listening to Jarrett's story. I will be following his story very closely, and I will share any updates with you as they come in over on the socials. Make sure you give us a follow. We will be back again very soon with another unsolved missing persons case. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.